Dr. Kim So-jin's hands never trembled, not even when injecting nanobots into Veltharian officers during their routine medical checkups. The microscopic devices were Deho's design, powered by bioelectric fields and programmed with a single purpose: to record everything their hosts saw and heard. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out on dozens of stations and ships. Park Min-zio, a maintenance engineer on the Jupiter mining platform, had spent 2 years slowly introducing flaws into the life support systems. Choi Yoon-ji, working as a translator in the Mars Command Center, had been feeding false intelligence to the Veltharian fleet commanders for months. The resistance operated like Deho himself, invisible, patient, and utterly ruthless. They were janitors and cooks, nurses and mechanics, translators and gardeners. The Veltharians had conquered Earth's armies, but had never thought to fear its service workers. On Luna Base, former Navy Admiral Kan Tae-jin served meals in the officers' mess hall. He smiled politely as Veltharian captains discussed their next conquest target, the Centauri colonies. They never suspected that the old man refilling their glasses had once commanded Earth's largest space fleet. The network communicated through cleaning schedules, meal rotations, and maintenance reports. A pattern of spilled coffee here, a specific arrangement of flowers there, a particular sequence of floor mopping strokes. To the aliens, it looked like random human inefficiency. To the resistance, it was a language more complex than quantum. Encryption. Dae-ho received the final confirmations through So-jin's medical supply orders. 3 extra bandages meant the Jupiter team was ready. 5 additional syringes meant Mars was prepared. When she ordered exactly 17 antiseptic packs, he knew every cell was in position. The Veltharians had made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. They thought broken meant defeated. They couldn't imagine that sometimes you had to lose everything to become truly dangerous. The big alien ships came to Earth 3 years ago, and nobody could stop them. The Veltharian Empire was huge and scary. They had big metal ships that looked like flying cities. These ships were so big they blocked out the sun when they flew over Earth. The aliens inside these ships had been taking over planets for hundreds of years. They thought Earth would be easy to take, and they were right, Commander. Vextar was the boss alien on the space station that floated above Seoul, Korea. He was tall and had gray skin like a rock. His eyes were red, and they never showed any feelings. He sat in his big chair every morning and read reports about how well his people were controlling the humans. He smiled when he read the numbers: 7 billion. Humans now worked like slaves for his empire. The humans had given up fighting very fast. Their armies put down their guns. Their leaders said they would do whatever the aliens wanted. All the big important humans now worked in offices filling out papers or growing food for the alien ships. The aliens thought this meant they had won completely. But Commander, Vextar did not see the human man cleaning the floor behind his chair. Lee Dae-ho pushed his cart very slowly across the metal floor. The cart had wheels that squeaked a little, but not too loud. Inside the cart were bottles of cleaning liquid and dirty rags, and a mop that had seen better days. Dae-ho wore the same gray uniform that all the cleaning people wore on the station. It was old and had some stains on it. His name tag just said Janitor in alien writing. The aliens never looked at him. Dae-ho had learned that being invisible was the best way to stay alive. When the alien ships first came, he was Colonel Lee Dae-ho of the Korean Special Forces. He had trained for 20 years to fight enemies. He knew how to use every kind of weapon. He could speak 5 languages and he could kill a man with his bare hands. But when the aliens came with their big ships and their death rays, none of that mattered. The human armies fought for 3 days, and then it was over. The aliens were too strong and too many. So Dae-ho did something very smart. He threw away his uniform and his medals and his guns. He put on janitor clothes, and he learned how to be nobody. For 3 years he had been cleaning floors and emptying trash cans on the alien space station. Every day he walked through the same halls, pushing the same squeaky cart. The aliens talked around him like he was furniture. They said important things about their plans and their secrets because they thought he was too stupid to understand, but Deho understood everything. He had taught himself to speak the alien language by listening to them talk. He knew which aliens were friends and which ones hated each other. He knew when they had meetings and what they talked about. He knew how their computers worked and where they kept their weapons. He knew which doors needed special codes to open, and he knew what those codes were. Aliens thought he was cleaning their station, but really he was studying it like a scientist studies a bug. He knew every pipe and every wire and every secret room. He knew where they slept and what they ate, and when they were most likely to be alone. Deho also knew things about the other humans on the station. His wife Kim. So Jin worked in the medical center where sick and hurt aliens went to get better. The aliens trusted her because she was good at fixing people. They did not know that she was also very good at remembering things. She remembered every alien she treated and what was wrong with them and what medicines they needed. She also remembered which aliens were important and which ones were just regular soldiers. Their daughter Lee Hane was 17 years old. Now she had been 14 when the aliens came. She worked in the station cafeteria serving food to alien workers. The aliens thought she was just a quiet girl who did what she was told, but Hana watched everything and remembered everything just like her parents taught her. She knew which aliens were mean and which ones were afraid. She knew who had secrets and who could be trusted. The three of them lived in a small room in the human section of the station. It had 2 beds and a tiny kitchen and a window that looked out at Earth. The room was always cold and the walls were thin so they could hear their neighbors talking, but at night when everyone was asleep, they would whisper to each other about what they had learned that day. Deho had been making a map in his head for 3 years. Now he knew the station better than the aliens who built it. He knew every way in and every way out. He knew where the important machines were and how to break them. He knew where the weapons were stored and how to get to them. But most important of all, he knew that the aliens had made a big mistake. They thought that because the humans had stopped fighting, the humans had given up. But Deho knew that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make your enemy think you have already lost. While the aliens were celebrating their victory, the humans were getting ready for something much bigger. There were other humans like Deho on other alien stations and ships. They all had jobs that made them invisible: cooks and cleaners and repair workers and doctors. All of them were watching and learning and waiting. The aliens called them by their job names, but they called each other by a different name. They called themselves Ghost Protocol. Tonight, Deho was going to send a message to all the other ghosts. The message would be very simple, and it would change everything. The message was that it was time to stop being invisible. Commander Vextar finished reading his reports and stood up from his chair. He walked past Deho without looking at him, just like always, but tonight would be the last time the alien commander would make that mistake. Tonight the janitor would show everyone who he really was. Commander Vextar was having a pleasant morning until his coffee cup exploded. The explosion wasn't large, barely enough to shatter ceramic, but it was impossible. The cup had been sitting on his desk for less than a minute, brought by that quiet human janitor who always worked the morning shift. The same janitor who was now standing in his doorway, no longer hunched over his mop. Lee Deho straightened to his full height, and Vextar finally saw him clearly. This wasn't some broken farm worker. The human's eyes held the cold calculation of a predator, and his hands moved with the precise efficiency of someone trained to kill. Across the station, similar scenes erupted simultaneously. Park Ji-woo, the head cook, had prepared a special breakfast for the alien officers. The food was perfectly safe, but the plates contained thermite charges triggered by body heat. As the Veltharians lifted their forks, their meals became weapons. In the medical bay, Dr. Sojin activated the nanobots she had been secretly injecting into patients for months. Suddenly, half the alien command staff found themselves temporarily paralyzed, their nervous systems hijacked by microscopic machines. The humans had turned the station itself into a weapon. Every coffee cup, every meal, every medical treatment had been carefully prepared for this moment. The Veltharians had been living inside a trap for years, and they had just stepped on the trigger. Alarms began screaming throughout the facility. Emergency lockdown protocols activated, but Deho had rewritten the security codes months ago. Instead of protecting the aliens, the station's own systems turned against them. Blast doors sealed them into sections where hidden charges waited. Life support systems redirected oxygen away from command centers. The resistance members shed their humble disguises like snakes molting skin. They moved with military precision, each knowing exactly where to go and what to do. Years of preparation condensed into minutes of perfect execution. Vextar reached for his weapon, but Deho was already moving. The human who had invisibly served him for 3 years was now the most dangerous person in the room. The orbital bombardment that was supposed to crush Earth's remaining cities never came. Instead, the Veltharian fleet found itself facing an impossible situation. Their own ships were betraying them. On the flagship's bridge, what the aliens thought was a navigation error was actually Choi Yoon-ji's masterpiece. For months, she had been subtly altering star charts and orbital calculations. Now, instead of targeting Earth's population centers, the fleet's weapons were aimed at each other. Admiral Kang Tae-jin's years serving meals had given him access to every ship captain in the fleet. He knew their personalities, their fears, their tactical preferences. When the chaos began, he sent carefully crafted messages that turned the Veltharians against each other. Commander Wrath thought Commander Zek was attempting a coup. Admiral Voss believed her second-in-command was plotting assassination. The Resistance had weaponized paranoia itself. On Mars, the mining operation that had been feeding the Empire's war machine suddenly reversed its purpose. Park Min-seo's sabotage came to fruition as refineries exploded in carefully calculated sequences. The chain reaction destroyed not just the facility, but created a debris field that crippled shipping lanes throughout the system. Meanwhile, on Jupiter's moons, similar explosions cascaded through processing plants and fuel depots. The Empire's supply lines, which had seemed so secure, collapsed within hours. Back on the orbital station, Deho moved through corridors he knew better than the aliens who had built them. Each turn revealed another perfect ambush. Each room contained supplies he had positioned years in advance. The Veltharians were fighting in their own stronghold, but it had become alien territory to them. Dr. So-jin coordinated medical teams that were actually tactical units. Her patients were resistance fighters who had been posing as injured workers for months, waiting for activation. Her medical supplies included weapons, components disguised as bandages and medicine. The empire that had conquered Earth through overwhelming force found itself strangled by invisible threads. Their communications were compromised, their supply lines severed, their command structure infiltrated at every level. They had won a war against Earth's armies, but they had never fought Earth's janitors. 3 hours after the first coffee cup exploded, the Veltharian Empire was in full retreat from the Sol system. Those ships that could still navigate fled toward distant stars, carrying tales of the impossible, an entire species that had pretended to surrender while actually waging the most sophisticated resistance campaign in galactic history. Commander Vextar lay paralyzed in his own command chair, courtesy of Dr. So-jin's nanobots. He could only watch as Lee Deho stood over him, no longer the invisible janitor, but revealed as the architect of the Empire's destruction, the human. Spoke in perfect Veltharian, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. He explained how every coffee cup, every meal, every medical checkup had been a chess move in a game the aliens never realized they were playing. How humanity had turned its greatest weakness into its ultimate strength. The Veltharians had seen submission where there was strategy, defeat where there was planning, broken spirits where there was unbreakable resolve. They had conquered Earth's governments, but had never suspected that Earth's true power lay in the people they considered beneath notice. As rescue ships arrived to evacuate the surviving aliens, Deho removed his janitor's uniform for the last time. Underneath, he wore the insignia of his true rank, General of the Unified Earth Resistance, a position that had never officially existed, but had commanded forces across the solar system. His wife joined him on the observation deck, still wearing her medical coat. Their daughter Hannah arrived with other young resistance members who had spent their teenage years as maintenance apprentices, while actually serving as intelligence operatives. Earth was free, but more than that, Earth had sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity could be conquered, but it could never be dismissed. The species that the Empire had classified as agricultural workforce units had just demonstrated that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one you never bothered to see. Years later, when other species asked the Veltharians about their defeat, they would struggle to explain. How do you tell the galaxy that you lost a war to your own janitors? How do you admit that the most sophisticated military operation in your history was planned by people emptying your trash cans? The humans, for their part, went back to their daily lives. Deho returned to his original profession, though now as an instructor rather than a soldier. So Jen continued her medical practice. Hannah studied engineering with a particular interest in life support systems. But across the galaxy, in alien intelligence networks and military academies, a new phrase entered the lexicon: Ghost Protocol. It became shorthand for the idea that the most dangerous enemy might be the one serving your coffee, mopping your floors, or simply standing quietly in the background, waiting for the perfect moment to remind you that invisibility is the ultimate weapon. The janitor had never been just a janitor. He had been exactly what Earth needed: a ghost who could walk through walls, because those walls were made of assumptions, prejudices, and the fatal mistake of thinking that conquered meant defeated. In the end, the Veltharian Empire learned what many others would discover in the centuries to come: when you're dealing with humans, always look twice at the help